Welcome to Ring the Damn Bell, man. I have a special guest today. His name's Chuck Coates. A lot of you may know him as Mad Max. Let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Chuck Coates. He worked in WCW, WWE. He's held several independent organizations of the belts. Um, he has had the NDW Heavyweight Championship, which is the New Dimension Wrestling, the PWF Heavyweight Champion, which is the Pro Wrestling Federation, and of course, his biggest opponent of them all was cancer, which he had 3 times.
Yeah.
He has been cancer free for 7 years. And Chuck, real quick, just to let you know, I am getting feedback whenever I'm talking from your side. So whenever I'm talking, I'm just going to mute the mic and I'll turn on the mic so you can talk, once I get to you, which is right now, again, 7 years cancer free, man. You kick cancer's butt 3 times.
It's right now it's actually 9 years, but the 2016, April 1st, 2016, no April Fool's here. I was cancer free for a third time and been living life, man. I've really I look at things different as most people would, but I don't take things for granted no more. And every day's a blessing, and I'm just glad to be a part of stuff like this. You guys help keep us up. We not to brag, I guess, but we don't sometimes get enough credit for what we did back in the day. And we, our group was, I say group because we traveled in like 12 to 15 guys, and we wanted that break, but it didn't happen. Some of us got a break and got a push, but the majority of the enhancement guys just we wanted to be on TV and do our thing and get a chance. All we wanted was a chance, and so you know I tell people a lot of times, I've had people say, "We almost made it." I did make it. I just didn't. I didn't start. Every running back, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, every great running back will tell you they had a great offensive line, and I feel like it's the same thing with pro wrestling. To Sting and Undertaker and Stone Cold and Flair, all of them will tell you that they really got known by the television. And television, they had to look good and sharp, and so that was our job, is to make them look great. And so I don't know why I get off on that rabbit trail, but that's just kind of like how I look at it. And I just thank you for these opportunities to be able to talk about it and share.
Well, I tell you, thank you for actually coming on. And it's funny that you mentioned that. I have a gentleman that's going to be coming on the podcast here next few weeks, and we were talking to him last night, and he's like, "Man, I know, thank you for having me on because I know I'm a nobody." I said, "Whoa, whoa." I said, "One, you made it through professional, the training aspect of it. That is something that a lot of people can't even make past, is the training. So you are a somebody and you have accomplished things. And as far as the enhanced talent, um, when I was a kid, for some reason, I paid attention to the enhanced talent. I love George South. I love the Mulkey Brothers. Bob Cook, I was a huge fan of, and I have been so blessed to become friends with Bob Cook, and he's on my podcast with me every Tuesday. All those guys that you mentioned, Sting, The Undertaker, Hogan, all those guys, they wouldn't be the people that they are, the legends, if it wasn't for you guys. Because, as you said, without someone to make them look strong, then they would have never been strong. They would have never been presented as these strong wrestlers. Um, so let's talk about WCW for a moment. When did you arrive in WCW, and what were some of your highlights, and why did you eventually leave WCW?
Well, here's the thing. I got, when I was in the Indies, my actual first ever TV match was in '89. That was WWF, and had a little run there. And then Bobby Fulton of the Fantastic saw me an independent show, and believe it or not, the Russian assassin or whatever was going to work with Ivan that night. And um, this is crazy, but I showed up to the show. They always told us back in the day, carry your bags and just show up. and that, if you're not even booked, show up. And so I did that. And it was a shot not too far from home. And he freaked out. I went in the back and he lost his cool. He's like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And I just told him who I was. And long story short, his brother Jackie come up. He said, my brother is a little high strung. He said, "Here's a ticket. You guys go ahead and around and go watch the show." And before I could even get to the get out of the locker room to go back, I was trying to explain to him why I came. And he comes up. He says, "Bobby," says, "how long have you been working?" I said, "At the time, about 3 years." He said, "Who trained you?" I said, "Nelson Royal and Gene Anderson." That raised him. He's like, "Oh, really?" So out of respect, he knew that I was probably at least decent. And because those guys are so well known. He says, "You think you could have a match with Ivan?" I said, "Well, I'll sure try." He said, "I've got the outfit. My Russian's not here, and I need somebody to do it." And I was 265 pounds. I'm 6 foot tall. So I'm not a little guy. And, I was a chain match. It's a chain match of all things. So I got out there, and me and Ivan sold out gym, high school gym. And I listened to him like you're taught, listen, be all ears and do what you're told. We knocked it out of the park. And next thing I know, Bobby's calling me, said, "Hey, the other guy was arrested for drunk driving that night, and I need a new Russian. Would you be interested?" Bobby was running 6 or 7 shows a month then. Anyway, back to my point. He had called WCW. Him and Jackie were going to work as the New Fantastics with Tommy Rogers had pretty much retired. And Jackie's his brother. And he said, "I want to take you up there. Do you want to go?" I said, "Absolutely." So Bobby Fulton gave me my first, I guess, chance. I got there. We had a great little match. It's on YouTube, and the Fantastics, 1990, I believe it was. And I tagged with one of his students. And Jody Hamilton was the booker. He booked all the enhancement guys. And he says, "Would you like to start working for us?" I said, "Absolutely." So, I had about a 2.5 year run with them. And I was there during the Black Scorpion days, and back when Sid was hurting the guys and Vader was hurting the guys. Thank God I never worked with either one of them. But the Steiners were hot, Sting was hot, Nikita and Lex were going at it, the Black Scorpion. And that was when Bobby Eaton broke away and started working singles. They pushed him to work with Flair. And if you can remember back in that day, that was pretty, WCW was going through a transition. And so the house shows, believe it or not, it was kind of a downtime, but still all the guys stuck together and worked our way through it. And then we been on about, as far as we could go. And then it just kind of turned to the next step. Battle Bowl, I remember that. I remember Spring Stampede and what was it called, Sturgis with the Harley Davidson. It was just a fun time, and I was a part of that. And mainly I was a TV guy, but he did book me on some house shows as well. Throughout my territory was Carolinas, North, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Virginia. So anytime they ran around here, they would call, and I'd work second match against whoever. I worked with Norman the Lunatic. I worked with Alan Iron Eagle, and some of Jim Hurd's ideas. I was the one that had to go out there and put them over, but it was fun. I would do it again because it was just part of being a part of it was fun, and having that chance, thinking maybe you can present something that they like. I was there tonight. Mark Merrow got his break, and I'll never forget that. And Dusty liked him. He had the idea about the Johnny B. Bad, and they rehearsed it over and over and over that day in Asheville, North Carolina. And that night he was Johnny B. Bad, and it was great. That's what I wanted. I wanted that break, and it never did happen. But you know what? I had a blast.
So you mentioned the name Jim Herd. Uh, Man, there's been a lot of controversy with Jim Herd, and a lot of wrestlers just didn't like this guy. Did you have a relationship with Jim Herd, a professional relationship with Jim Herd, and how was it working with him?
Never did I meet him. The guys I dealt with, Jody, the assassin, Jody Hamilton, he was my immediate boss. Some of the other, Terry Taylor was the agent. Who else? I think at one time Flair was booking for a time when he cut his haircut and all. But that's during the time they wanted to change his gimmick. They wanted to change, a lot of things. What was that? The Oz for Kevin Nash and the Van Hammer and the stuff. Just Master Blasters and PN News, just ridiculous stuff. And Flair finally said, "No, I'm not doing Spartacus. I mean, that's not who I am. I'm not doing it." So that caused a little bit of heat. But for some reason, him and Ted were tied, and Ted hired him to do the pretty much call the shots, kind of like JR was doing in WWF at the time. And so Jim Herd just didn't make. He had zero experience with the business. He was I don't know what he do. Was he a pizza?
Pizza,
Yeah,
Pizza Hut.
but it's one of those buddy system things, and Ted put him in charge, and it was crazy. Now, I was asked to work. I worked with a lot of the guys that he put. I mean, the PN News. I worked with him, with Van Hammer. And I did what I was told. Alan Iron Eagle, um, uh, and I kept the job too. So it's one of those things where you're gonna let your pride get in the way of your job, literally. And I never complained, never admit, never really. Actually, to the point where Jody, you asked why I left WCW in right at 93 ish. He said that they were trying to get a new group of guys in because we had the Mid Atlantic guys. There was about 15 of us, like you said, George and David Isley and Ricky Nelson and Tommy Angel, some of the guys from Crockett, Gene Milligan. Then Rip Rogers, he was in charge of the northeast, north Indiana, Oklahoma, that area up in the Michigan and all. And they would come in and when they go out west. I mean, I think the furthest west they went was. I mean, they did some out in California, but mostly seemed like back then they kept it pretty much in the south and the southeast, and then mainly about this side of the United States. And we just had territories. Those guys up north that came down and basically just came in as a group, and we were there, and we had 2 days of TVs. We did 3 tapes a night back then, so you were 3 weeks behind on television. If you could actually put your VCR tape in and record it, you knew it was coming up because you knew what you already did. And so when I got to around 93, Jody had come to me and said, we're overusing you guys and we're looking for new faces. He says, just be on standby and I'll call you. Well, I guess 3 or 4 months went by. He didn't call, and I called back, and really didn't have anything happen. And it seemed like he kind of faded out. I can't remember how long Jody booked us guys, but it went on into the 94, 95, and then wrestling changed. WCW kind of, I don't know, when did NWO come along? 97, was that right?
Oh,
When
97. Yeah, they really their first time they really went through that change is that show that they did here in Minnesota at the Mall of America when Lex Luger appeared. That was in the I think 96, 97, and that's when they really started going through that change at that point.
Yeah, well, it worked out where I just focused on my independent, the Mad Max thing, and Bobby Fulton's a huge benefit in my wrestling career. He gave me the Mad Max. He was running those indie shows, and he wanted me to do something kind of like similar to Sting, but kind of change it up. So I threw the grunge in there, the cutoff shorts and the flannels. Like I kind of had a Raven flavor, and you know, we ran with that for a while. And I was still his Russian. I was working twice a night. His Russian was usually the main event against whoever, because that was such it was an easy match. I mean, whether it was Hacksaw, Duggan, or whoever, uh, Italian Stallion. I mean, Style was the big USA flag, Italian flag, But the Russian can get heat with anybody, and I did a good Russian. I did a good Nikita Koloff, and that just worked out great. And I ran with it. I got more work as Russian than I did anything, and so it ran its course. And the Soviet Union fell, and it kind of, like I said, it went on to it kind of faded out, and then it's kind of like Bern von Raschke and the Germans. You only get so much out of it, and uh, I did the Mad Max thing and just trying to get it, and whatever they say, we had little independent stuff and some TVs, local televisions that would carry just throughout the state. And on into the, not late 90s and 2000s, I started going on some tours with the USO, the military, and I worked for NWA Charlotte. That was David Balcom, which was, everybody called him Slim, but he was a big money guy in the Carolinas, and he backed it, got the NWA brand, and he backed it, and we had a good run there, about 3 years out of that. We were getting overseas tours and all that. We brought in a lot of guys that used to be rock and roll and bushwhackers and Tatanka and some of the guys that were hot earlier in the 90s, and were able to use that, and people, it was still hot because people still remembered it, and the military guys, they just loved it because it was a taste of America going to them. You know, gosh, Germany, Hawaii, uh, Saudi Arabia, little island called Diego Garcia. I mean, we did Japan, all of it, and it was neat. And I was the main guy, the main Russian guy, because Russian, believe it or not, you can run that Russian thing, and some people still believe they're communists. So run with it, right? Wrestling. The Russian sickle and hammer still gets over, believe it or not, but it's nothing like it used to be.
I tell you what. So funny story. So as I told you before we started, I just got back from Fan Fest. That's 3. That's why my voice is messed up. But Nikita was there. Oh, such a great guy, man. He is. But I tell you, I was talking to him about some things, and for about 5 minutes, I had a hard time comprehending, and I finally interrupted him, and I said, "Nikita, I got to be honest with you. I haven't seen you since I was a kid growing up watching wrestling, and you always had that Russian accent." I said, "You talking normal English is throwing me off, man, because I'm so used to that." But I want to go back to your cancer diagnosis for a moment, if you don't mind, because I think you are an inspiration and can be an inspiration to a lot of people who may be going through dealing with cancer and stuff like that. So when you first got diagnosed, how did you deal with that? And did you go through depression? And you dealt with it 3 times. So was your reaction to each diagnosis differently than what it originally was when you first received it?
Well, I'll kind of go through the whole thing. I was still active wrestling. I was working Friday, Saturday nights, and then doing every so often do a shot here and there. And I'd done a couple of WCW. What was it called? WCW Thunder, when
Yeah.
Jimmy Hart was running.
Mhm.
I did a few of those. And so I was just living life, man. I was uh, just everyday life, going for it, and taking the bull by the horns and running with it. And um, the state of Virginia requires, and some other states require require a license rather. You have to have a physical. And we did so many times. We would just get at work. We'd find a nurse or find somebody who would just sign off, and we really cheated the system because we didn't want to go to the doctor. Well, I was 38 years old, and I was dating at the time my wife now. She's a nurse, and she said you need to get a physical anyway. Just go get it. Don't worry about just usually insurances will take care of it because it's a yearly thing. She talked me into going, so I owe a lot to her, and I went. I didn't have no symptoms or anything, and he checked me out, so you look great, everything's good, but he was mashing around and all that like doctors do, and he says, "I want you to get this place." He mashed way down in my neck. There's a place down there I like for you to get checked out by a specialist, and I'm like, okay. I went on, got my paper, went on to wrestle. I wrestled Luger that weekend in Galax, Virginia. Lex, Russian, once again, the Russian versus Luger. It went over really well. And she kept on me and on me. And like, I waited 9 weeks. I remember in 9 weeks, she said, if I had to take you to that doctor to get that checked out, I'm going to take you. So I finally said, okay, honey, I'll go. Boy, I'm glad I did. We're hard headed. Old men, we're stubborn and hard headed. And I went, lo and behold, with no symptoms, no fatigue, nothing. And they came back and said, you have lymphoma, which is a sign of type of blood cancer, very similar to leukemia. And but you need to get that looked at, oncology and all that. So my whole world stopped. You hear cancer and whoa, it's never me. It's always a relative or it's always a friend. It's all somebody you used to hang out with, but it was me. So my world stopped and wrestling became secondary. And I wanted to get well. So I was 38 years old, and the doctor says, if I had to give you cancer, he said, no cancer is good. But if I had to give you cancer, I'd give you this one because the 90% chance we get it remission, it won't come back. 90%. Well, it was 90% for uh, 5 years. And 2006, 2012, it came back again. I was part of the 10%, I guess. And we went through a bone marrow transplant and got it, whipped it again. And then 4 years later, 2016, it came back a third time. I say 2016, 2015. 2016, I was uh, uh, declared cancer free on April 1st. So the second transplant. So I've had three bouts with lymphoma, 2 bone marrow transplants. I'm a walking miracle, and I don't say that because I'm nothing special, but for whatever reason, the Lord has a plan for me. Uh, I am a foster parent. We've been fostering kids for about 14 years, so I'm trying to figure out what my purpose is during all this time. And I'm thinking, Lord, what in the world? What is there something you're trying to tell me? And I look back now, 9 years cancer free at the moment, and I realized that, you know what, there was a purpose for my life, and I've been able to help others by the fostering. I've been able to help others by sharing my story like I'm doing now, but actually one on one. Some people don't want to talk about it. Some people, I tell everybody, and if anybody's listening, if you got, I'm nothing. I can't fix it, but I can be a good encouragement, and I can hopefully be support to you. You hit me up, and I'm sure before we get through, you'll give them information. But anything I can do to give you a positive outlook and try to keep you from getting depressed or getting the anxiety, everything that comes with it, because it is a life changing event, and it's really like I said earlier, it's like it never happens to me. It's always somebody else, but it was me, and so uh, I just try my best. Of course, my spiritual life got a lot stronger because I am a true believer in healing, and I believe if it's the Lord's will, you're going to stay. If the Lord's will, you're going to go. And so I really put it all in His hands. And for the first time in my life, I had to accept the outcome because one time you're good, one time, two times, and then 3 times you're almost like, okay, is this going to be the way I go?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going to die, So I thought maybe this is just that's the way it's going to end. But I never gave up hope. I will say that I never gave up hope, and um, we went for it and got it, and it's I'm doing great now. Now I've done 3 benefits since then. I'm 57 now, so I can't do like I used to, but I have done benefits. It was actually causes like raising money for research, raising money for some sort of youth program, and but it was all. I don't just go do wrestling shows anymore. Even if my deal is I'll do it, but I got to have tag partner. I got to have at least a 6-man. And so I did one about 3 months ago, and it was 6-man tag, and I'm like, yeah, I can't I can't go 1-on-1. There's no way. So. But any chance I can do to, and I guess that's just the wrestler in me. You say you're done, but really you're never done. I mean, as long as I can walk, as long as I can get out there and feel good about myself. And I mean, we're really just like, even famous musicians. How many times has Kiss been done, Or how many times has Flair been done? I don't think he's done yet. I swear I think he'll come back one more time. But uh, I just, we never, it's in our blood. It's just, it's one of those things where you can't help it. And we're men and we're very proud and we like to kind of control our circumstances. And to an extent, I was in my life where I couldn't control my circumstances. So all I could do is rely on my wonderful wife, who, like I said, she was a nurse and she was the best caregiver I could ever have. And then, of course, the Lord who brought me through it and kept me around. And so, I want to be a positive influence for anybody, and I can help out any way I can to.
Yeah. So you're talking about wrestling, always being part of it. I spent a lot of time this weekend with Terry Zeller, who is a legend within himself. And he said that he doesn't think that there's a greater addiction than professional wrestling whenever you're in it because of the cheers or even the boos and being in the ring and being with the boys. But and I don't mean to put you on the spot with this, but my podcast, I know it's just a wrestling podcast, but if I could pull something positive to help somebody, that's what I want to do. So again, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but what would you say to somebody who is fighting cancer right now and they're down about it? They're maybe fighting depression. What would be the words of encouragement that you would say to them if they were watching this?
If you're familiar with Jimmy Valvano, he was a famous basketball coach where I went to when I went to college, NC State, in the late '90s. he coined the phrase, "Don't give up. Don't ever give up." And you see it today when they raise money for the V Foundation. That all goes to cancer research. You cannot quit. You cannot quit. You can't give in. And every day, I tell people, and this is exactly how I felt. I'm telling you from my heart. Okay, the doctor says this. This is a situation. This is what you're going to go through. And if everything goes well, we've got a certain date where you should be okay. You got to look through the tunnel. There's a tunnel, and it's dark. This helped me. I'm just telling you what I way down there at the end, whether it's 6 months, a year, whatever your situation is, there's a light. And every day, that little speck of light gets a little bit bigger, bigger, and bigger, because every day you're one day closer to getting healed. And you cannot look at it any other way. You cannot say, "Oh, this is it. I'm going to die." No, I'm not one time that I ever accept that, because I refuse to. I mean, here's my philosophy in my life. If I live, great. If I die, I'm going to heaven. I couldn't lose. I mean, I had to come to that point. And everybody wants to live, obviously, but you cannot let it whoop you, because I'm telling you, if you do, it's one of the biggest. Did I get scared? Absolutely. I'm not sitting here telling you I'm, invincible. Did I have my days where I just didn't know which way to turn? Yes. But overall, with the help of a great, and if somebody's out there doing this by themselves, find a friend, find an encourager, find a preacher, find somebody you can talk to that's positive. Do not listen and be around negative people. That's one thing that gets me today is people complain. They'll complain about stuff, and I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, dude, you're alive. You're doing great. You're walking. You're talking. You can see. You can hear. You can feel." I mean, life is so much so much more than just having a bad time, or you got bad news. Your car broke down, or those things I used to worry about, stress over. Okay, I'm broke down. Let's fix it. It's nothing compared to going through a life changing, near death experience like cancer. And so I just challenge whoever to just keep looking forward, to remember that little light. And every day, if you're going through treatments, if you're whatever you're doing, if you're in the hospital and you're just trying to, the doctor's giving you stuff to do, and you're trying to slowly get straight, whatever. One day you wake up another day, and that's a little bit closer to that light. And one day out of that, like I did, you get out of that tunnel, and that light shines, and you're back out. And it may take a while. And patience is the other thing. You can't do it. And I mean, it's easy for me to say now because I was anxious as anybody, but somehow, some way, you got to find a book to read. You grab your Bible, find a scripture, cling to that stuff. Just try to keep. We're human beings, and we cannot. Your brain's a powerful thing, and sometimes you can't control what you think, but you got to somehow just look at the positive, hang around positive people, listen to positive advice, and do your best to just keep focused. A horse has those blinders for a reason. He can't see the outside. He needs to, if he got a job to do, it's there, straightforward. You got to be like that horse in the parade, or that horse wherever. You got to just keep looking forward. You can't let this distractions bother you. And so that's my challenge to people who are fighting it, because I know right now somebody's going to hear this, and there's somebody, it might not be you, it might be your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister. Just be an encouragement to them. And like I said, I'm not invincible. No way. I'm sitting here talking like it's easy. It's not easy. I'm the first one to tell you it's not easy, but I can tell you can be a positive influence, and you can be that person that goes the extra mile. Because a lot of times being a good friend is not convenient. Well, I got to stop by after work and grab this or grab that. Do it. Be willing to help that guy or girl, or whatever. If it's you, spend a lot of time praying, and these are things that I did. I can't. I'm just trying to give you my heart, and so. Um, Even if I don't know who you are, message me, man. I'll talk to you as long as I have to, and try to be encouraged, like I'm telling you to be an encouragement to folks, and just try to help them. And like I said, I'm not speaking just to somebody who's fighting cancer. I'm speaking to somebody who's involved with a mom or dad or somebody. It's heartbreaking, and you want to help them so bad. I've had people say, if I could take, my mom would say, I could take the pain, I would, honey. I said, Mom, I know you would, but I'm fine. I'd rather have it than you have it. So, you know, just be a positive role model and try to help people with encouragement.
Yeah, and for those who may hear this, who may want to get a hold of Chuck, He is on Facebook, Chuck Coates. Man, I I don't know how we can go from that to talk about wrestling again because um so you mentioned Bobby Fulton, who's had a lot of impact in your life within professional wrestling. Bobby, unfortunately, has been dealing with some health stuff himself, but there's also been a lot of negativity amongst wrestling stuff coming at his way, and I don't want to talk about that whatsoever because my podcast is a positive podcast. Have you talking to Have you talked to Mr. Fulton lately? And if so, how is he doing mentally and even physically?
We haven't spoke. That gives me it's probably a reason why you brought that up. I probably need to call him. You can tell, you can message all day long, but something about that old fashioned phone call, let somebody know you care about them. And I know exactly what you're talking about. We're going to keep it positive. I know all about that situation. Um, I will tell you this though, right or wrong, indifferent. Bobby Fulton loves his children. He's got two boys, and there's even if they're not maybe doing the right thing, or he's a great dad. And don't let everybody tell you that. I mean, wrestling aside, he's a great dad, and he loves his kids, and he will back his kids, obviously. Um, where it's like me, I've got a son, 32, and even if he's wrong, I'm still going to have his back, you know. But I know it's been a rough 6 months to a year. I know it has been, but last I heard, we have messaged back and forth. Last I heard, he's still running. I mean, it's not as frequent, but I know I'll see a poster or whatever you call them now on Facebook every so often where he's putting together another show. He was a great promoter. We always had great shows. And when I say great shows, whether it was 250 people, whether it was 150 people, whether it was 6,000, because he's had it all. He would give everybody 110%. I mean, he'd go out there. He told me one night, he said the house is down, which down for him was about 150 people. He there and worked like there's 10,000 people. He said they paid their money, they bought their tickets, they deserve a good show. And he told me that as a young wrestler. I never forgot that. Those people, they can't help that, there ain't 5,000 people come. They came because they wanted to see the product. And we go out there and kill ourselves for him. And it's one of the reasons he kept using me because he knew that he could count on me. But he taught me some good lessons, and I'll always love him and respect him. I mean, I uh, aside from all the negativity lately, he's my friend, and I'll never forget what he did for me. And his brother Jackie is wonderful, great guy. Um, the kids I've known him very well, and I think Jaron is actually trying to get into wrestling. I believe I saw him with tights on here a while back. I don't know if but these kids, they were little bitty guys. As a matter of fact, they weren't even around when I first met Bobby, but I've seen them grow up. And um, the thing is, I love him. He's my brother, and uh, I would have his back regardless. And there's been times where now this is completely. Uh, I'm not on the same level as your your guys, like people like you. I don't know, okay, Van Dam and some of the guys at Lance Storms and the people that they know over the years, even WCW, the Johnny B. Bads and the guys that were Matt Bourne, and I guess what am I trying to say? RVD's not a mid card, but I'm talking about the people that are have always been like right there, and
Mhm.
there's step away from getting. I'm not on that level, but being a guy that nobody really knew, there's been times where it'd be a tough night, and I between me and you, I don't mind sharing this. I go up to Bobby, I say, just get me later. I know that you probably lost a little bit tonight. He says, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah, just get me later. We'll catch up." He always did. He always did. But that was a personal thing between me and him.
Mhm.
Now, I know that some people handle it differently, but I always try to, and like I said, my history with Bobby's different than most people, but I always try to respect the fact that without him, I would have never gotten WCW. Without him, I would have never been able. There's some places I couldn't go or couldn't do. He was kind of like a huge stepping stone to my career, and you know, um, it's just one of those things where it's all about respect and anything. I'm like you with the show. I love this show because I try to look past the negativity and look at the person. And I know it's a good man, and I know he's a man who's busted his rear end for this business. beyond anything I could ever think of. I mean, he booked me against Nikita one night at a fair show in Fairfax, in Front Royal, Virginia. Mad Max and Nikita Koloff. I mean, I'm like, what? And this is after that thing with Russian Ivan, started using me. Well, he booked me as Max. Usually I was his Russian. I'm like, you want me to do Max? He said, yeah, go out there and tear the house down. You and Nikita will have a great. No, we knocked it out of the park. But I thought he had enough faith in me to put me out there as my character, who I wanted to be, and let me go out there in front of 3,000. And it was wonderful. Good heat. Everything was good. Of course, the big stickle. We made it. And we built it up like the story's supposed to tell. And then in the end, I missed something. Here it comes. Wham! And it was fun being the star for a change. On that particular night, I was the main event. And that was cool. And anyways, just going back to that, I respect him. I love him. And no matter what, I love RVD. He's a good friend too. And over the years, we were in South Atlantic together way back when. I know you shared on the banner. You had a picture of the Germans, and I was that's where I first met Rob back in 90, 91, and he was just getting started, I think. So I love those guys very much. I try to stay out of it. It's none of my business, but I do respect and love them to the fullest, and mind my business. And what I can do to help out, I will. If I'm not asked, I just mind my business and move along.
To that note, let's talk about someone that it was smart to mind your own business around, and that would be Andre the Giant. I know that in WWF you had a big match with Andre, I think it was Haku with Andre Giant versus you and Paul Roma. Who did you fear more in that match as far as screwing up? Was it Haku or was it Andre the Giant?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I had heard the stories about Haku, so I guess it would probably be him because I knew Andre. They say if Andre liked you, he liked you. If he didn't, he didn't. And so we're talking about my second match ever on television, ever. The night before I went to West Virginia, I worked with Bossman and Akeem when tag match on TV. The next night, here we are with Paul Roma. I put him with Paul Roma when they put there's a chalkboard back then, and they would write the matches on the chalkboard. And I saw Chuck coaching Paul Roma. I thought, wow, I'm tagging with Paul Roma. That's cool. And then they started writing the other side, Haku and Andre. I knew all about the Colossal Connection. I knew the finish. I knew everything about the match. So can I share this with you real quick? Andre, believe it or not, Haku comes up when we get there around 1:30, check in, everything. They put the matches up, and then Haku comes up and he finds who am I working with, and you find, hey, it's me, Chuck Cousin. He's awesome. He goes, hey, brother, here. He said, you watch our matches? I said, yes, sir, I sure do. He said, same stuff, brother. This. Then he got done, and it spent about 2 minutes with me. You got it? I said, yes, sir. I'm all ears. Good. He said, Andre, I'll get with you, but don't bother him when he's playing cards. Guess what? We're at 3:30, 4 o'clock. We're on 7 o'clock. We're the third match. Andre didn't stop playing cards till 6:45. I'm scared to death. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I know the finish. I know what they normally do, but please, God, I want to just hear Andre tell me. Next thing I know, we're at the gorilla position. We're third match, and we're getting ready to start the show. Like I said, we're taping back then. And I heard this deep voice, where is he? And it's Haku's bringing him by the arm to me. And he says, here he is, Andre. And he looks at me. I give you a headbutt. You do not take bump. Do not go down. That's all he said. And I knew right then it was the same finish they normally do. We got out there, knocked out of the park. Good finish. Everything was good. Once again on YouTube, if you want to watch me get my brains kicked in. Came back. Andre come up, shook my hand. So I assumed he was okay with me. And that was that. He went back to his table, his champagne bottles, and started playing cards again. He's like, let me know when I'm on next. But I mean, there was nothing. He was in not a hurry for nothing. It's almost like, give me 2 minutes and I'll be there. But he didn't mean like 2 hours. He said, just let me know when I'm next. And he just had his tights on, had his boots on. He'd go play cards until it was time. But that's just the way he was. Nobody bothered him. It's like, Andre, 10 minutes, we're up. Okay. He started making his way to the curtain. And but we were able to get through that and So I wanted to share that little story with you. But man, like 6:45, I was about to die. I was like, oh my God. If I get out there and he changes something, I'm going to be dead.
So let me ask you this. I've always heard rumors that there was only one man Andre the Giant was somewhat scared of, and that would be Haku. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, it is. And I heard that the reason he got Haku is the Colossal Connections because that's the reason why. I was told that of all the partners he could have, he chose him. He said, I want to partner with him because of that simple fact. If I'm wrong, forgive me, but I've been told that by multiple people that Haku is the only man he ever feared. And tagging with him, he'd have to worry about him, you know. And Haku loved him. When you get somebody you tag with and he loves you, you're good. And but Andre had no issue. I mean, as far as I know, they called the boss. He was the boss, and he was actually, from what I know, respected by everybody. And the one man that they say he feared, he tagged with it, and he hand chose him. And I guess they came up with whoever came up with Colossal Connection. It worked, and so that was it. Plus, he was getting, he was in a lot of pain, and they knew that Haku would carry him through until he got to the point he couldn't do it anymore. But that was his last run, if you remember, and it was tag match. And he came into the finish, and that was it because he was in a lot. They said he had like 11 back surgeries up to that point because he was in so much pain. And I also was told that he was offered the medication that Big Show takes, but he said no. I had heard that he had said no because it would kill his character, who he is. And I don't know if that's true or not, but the giantism diseases, they got a medicine now that you can control it. And so, but he refused. I was told he refused it. And so he just lived as long as he could. And I watched the last match he had in Japan. It was pitiful. It was so sad. Both knees wrapped up. He could barely get it. It just broke my heart to see that. But memory that I'll never forget, obviously. At the time, I thought it was cool, but now I look back and think, wow, did that really happen? Does that really mean?
Yeah, I've heard stories and watched documentaries about Andre the Giant, and my heart has always been out to that man. He really gave a lot for the fans and for the sport. Question for you, go kind of a fun question. Who do you think would win in a shoot fight, a real fight? Haku the Barbarian against the Steiners. Who do you think would win that fight? Give me 1 second. Let me unmute you.
I gotta go with I gotta go with the Polynesian boys. I love Rick and Scott, but we're talking in their prime, right? In their prime, I'd have to go with those Haku and Barbarian because those guys. It's the difference in being muscle strong and just flat out God-given strong. And I swear, I think Haku and Barbarian back in their prime could probably pick up a small car. I really do. I really do. And no disrespect to Scotty and Rick. They were good. They were awesome. But I did wrestle both of them too. And that was a fun match as well. Bob Cook will tell you, if you ever talk to Bob again, Steiner's, people got, oh God, you got the Steiners. Oh my God, Steiner line and da-da-da. It was fun. I had a good time. All you got to do is know how to take that stuff. Rick even told me, he said, when I come at you with the Steiner line, give me a shoulder tackle. That's all it is. He said, it's not it looks great, but the people, it's over. He even told me, just give me a shoulder tackle. And I came right at him. I crowded him. Boom. It looks like he took my head off. And so I see them today. I even see them today, and we talk about old times. And it's really cool that they kind of remember, and they look back at the good old days. And Rick's a great guy, man. I love Rick Steiner.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of Braun Breaker right now. He is just absolutely great. I want to go back to the old days though. At what point you teamed with Ricky Martin? And I can't remember, was that just a one-off or were you guys teaming for a while?
Just one time, actually 2 times. Ricky came up and did some shows. We're talking Independence, right? Independence.
Yeah.
Robert had some kind of a medical, something was going on where he couldn't go for a few months, and they put me with Ricky. But it was two deals. We had me and Ricky versus Ricky Nelson and Bob Eaton. So, a version of rock and roll versus a version of Midnights, and we ran that for about 2 shows. maybe three, because we had a little thing going with TV around here, and but it was good. And then whenever it was time for Robert, we had a little television show, and Robert came out and said, "As much as I love you, Max, we had a great little time, but I've got to bring back. Everybody knows Ricky and Robert, the World Tag Team." And so when Robert was ready to come back, Robert just fell right back into place, and they went back and started doing their thing. Ricky stayed with Bobby because Stan wasn't wrestling at all. So it was Robert Ricky against Ricky Nelson. Ricky Nelson was outstanding talent. He just he could have been the one. He just, I don't know. I'm sure you know I'm talking. Ricky was amazing. I worked with him hundreds of times on the indies. They put us together because we did so well together. So I don't know, but anyway, it was Robert came back. I kind of filled the gap for him until he got back.
Yeah. So are we doing okay with time? Because I have a buttload of questions. So just let me know whatever time. Okay. So how did the name Mad Max came about? I know Bobby Fulton had a lot to do with your makeup and stuff like that, but where did the name Mad Max come from?
He grabbed me. We did the thing. Let's go back to the number one where I showed up unannounced, worked with Ivan, had a great match. He actually called and said, "Can you?" I think it was Drexel, North Carolina, a little small town outside of that, Asheville, the mountains. And that night, he said, "I want you to paint your face and be Mad Max." And I thought, I knew about the movie, I knew about Mel Gibson. And he said, "We're going to add a D and an X, MADDMAXX, because we don't want any copyright. If you go with this and it makes it, we don't want any copyright issues, So he spelled it Mad Max, and we went with it. And at first, I had a Jason mask. It was almost like Sid Vicious, like when he was Lord Humongous. But he added the paint and wrestling tights. But we did that for about 6 months, and I got so tired of hearing Sting wannabe and this and that. Sting was hot, and so I decided to grunge it up a little bit, and he didn't have a problem with it. I just thought, plus I was a heel, and so I was doing other shows. For him, I did what he asked, but I was doing Max at other shows, and I was grunging it up with the paint and the cutoff shorts and the flannels. And like I said, I took Raven and Sting and put them together, and it was good. People loved it. It was just a little something I had the idea to do, but he came up with the name, and I knew there was a Mad Max from way back in AWA. I didn't know that till later, and of course Mad Max and Mel Gibson. But the idea of the character for Bobby, he wanted to be like a guy out of the insane asylum, and I was going to be like a lunatic, and it just didn't. It didn't go over that well, so I took it upon myself to change it, and I asked him later. I said, "Look, we're not working together as much anymore. Can I keep doing it?" He said, "Do your thing, man. I gave it to you." And so that's when I decided to change up a little bit and go with the grunge or whatever. And it seemed to work on the indie circuit. We had a good time, had a good run. And then I had, when I went to the NWA in Charlotte, they asked me would I do, the ECW was really hot. And they asked me would I be their hardcore guy because they were trying to mix a little bit of that into their program. I said, sure. I'd never been to a table. Well, that night they had bought 2 tables from a salvage place. What it was, they bought them a brand new one gave them for their 2 old ones because they were going to break them anyway. So they were like, yeah, it's a good deal. So we took the tables, and I broke my first table with Colt. Remember Colt Steele?
Oh, yeah.
Me and Colt worked that night, and I put him on a table. He said, "You better not hurt me." I thought, I don't want to hurt you. You'll kick my butt. But we went through the table, and that was that. And the next thing you know, they were doing the hardcore. I was like the hardcore guy, and not the barbed wire and tacks and all that. I didn't do that. I just did the tables like Sabu did, and we mixed that into the program. But that was Mad Max, and that's what I ended up doing all the way to my end of my career. And when but it went really well, and I didn't hear as many. You think you're Sting? Blah, blah, blah. I've heard a lot of. Are you related to Sting? You and Sting? I've heard a lot of that, but nobody was really saying anything in a negative way. So I kind of backed off of the original idea and went with my own, and it seemed to work. So
did you ever have an opportunity to work with Sabu?
no, he one night in Louisville, Kentucky, we were working. Remember Kid Cash?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, David Cash. We were tagging against 2 guys, and we beat them. And Sabu and Van Dam were the next match. They were working. Oh gosh, it was an independent show, so it wasn't the Dudleys. It was like Mikey Whipwreck and one of the other guys, C.W. Anderson, and we beat our team. We beat the guys. We beat Border Patrol, I believe it was. And Sabu, they were next match. They came in, hit the ring on us, beat us up, put us on tables. They were going to come off and do their deal. And then here comes Mikey and CW. Then they hit the ring and their match started. So their tables were already there. We just powdered and went, but he never put me through. But I was in the ring with him for a bit. And they went ahead and had their match, ECW type match. That was in Louisville, Kentucky at Louisville Gardens. And that's close I came to working with Sabu. But I did get to know him. I met him that night, and I saw him on a couple other shows. And he told me, he says, you don't need that paint. He just come up and said it. I said, what do you mean? He said, you're a good-looking guy. You got a good look. You don't need face paint. He said, face paint's for ugly people. And I said, he said, go be you, man. But he was just trying to help me. He said, you go be you. Do your thing. You don't need to paint. And, I mean, I just thought it was interesting that he said that. And that now that he's passed, I thought that's the one thing he told me. Because if he didn't care, he wouldn't care. But he was trying to give me advice. Well, that was his opinion. And so I really took it to heart, and I thought maybe I should just be me, you know, and that was that. But that was about it. And then never got to work with those guys in a match, but that was the closest I came to it.
Was that the first thing that went through your mind when you found out Sabu died? Was that experience when he told you about the face paint?
Yeah, I sure did. I thought about that, and that night the next night we were in Louisville, and we were in Orlando, Florida, Kissimmee, Florida, like 2 nights later. And another indie show, and because they worked around their ECW schedule back then, they could work spot shows if they didn't interfere with ECW. So we were in Orlando. Greg Price was the promoter, and we were there. And then that night, I didn't wrestle them, but we had matches. And that night we stayed at the same hotel, and we went by the pool. He had his puppy dog with him, and at the time his wife, I think it was his wife, and we were out by the pool at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, just talking and sitting there, and had a good time. And Van Dam was there, and I think Rob lived in Orlando then, so it wasn't too far from his house. And so we actually went out to eat, all that stuff, and it was kind of cool to be able to. I would say that it was more than a, hey, how you doing? Good to meet you type relationship. I would think if I went up to him, it's been a long time ago, but if I filled him in, he'd probably say, oh yeah, I remember that. So, a lot of times they say, do you know so and so? Well, I know him, but I probably said 2 words to him my whole life. It could be whoever. John Cena, I met him. Have you ever met so-and-so? Yeah, I met him. But can you really say you met him? Yes. Not, but are you friends with him? I had a chance to go up to Austin in 90 Stone Cold, the night that he did the beer truck. I went up to him and said, Steve, I says, I called him, wait just by himself. I didn't want to be unprofessional. And he was standing. I got him for like 2 minutes. He said, yeah, what's up, son? I said, I'm Chuck Coates, and I had your first TV match in WCW. I said, when you came out of Texas, me and you. He said, you are you serious? I said, yes. He said, how you doing, son? And we talked about it. And I could told you that night. If I'd have known you, I said, I told you this ain't gonna work. Son and Steve, what the? And he was just going on about it. I said, yeah. I said, we had a good little match. He said, yeah, I remember that. And I mean, not that he remembered the match, but he remembered that. Right. And so, I had about a 2-minute conversation with Austin. It was just me and him. And that was so cool. He shook my hand and said, well, keep up the good work, man. Blah, blah, blah. And this is after he'd become big time, So that was neat. And once again, folks, that's on YouTube as well. Punch in Stone Cold's first WCW match. It should pop up. Yes, I lost again.
Tell me about your relationship with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Did you ever face him in a ring? And then I know that you two did some charity work together. Tell me about all of that.
I met Hacksaw back in '89. He was he was hot with the flag and the 2x4 and the big all that stuff. And then later on, years later, when I'd been diagnosed in 2006, I told you I did some charities. In 2013, there was a charity fundraiser, and he was on the card. And he had been through, I think, one bout. And we got reacquainted that night, and we wrestled. I was once again the Russian against Hacksaw, and he come out with the flag and the 2x4, and we did our thing. And we talked about it, and we talked about that charity stuff. And I told him, I said, just keep me in mind. And he was so humble. I mean, it's amazing what it does, because back in the WWF days, not that he was a bad guy, but we weren't really. It wasn't a personal thing. You didn't feel like you go up and say hello, how you been? You feel like you're bothering him.
Right.
Almost. This time it was a totally different man, and we got to talking, and it just had a good time going over the match, and He says, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm doing the Russian." "Oh, that'll be easy, brother. That'll be easy, you know." And so and then now we see each other at these autograph deals. I try to help out with these things. I'm one of the, I guess you can call handlers for the boys, and I'll see him probably 3 or 4 times a year, and we always just talk, cut up a little bit, and talk about cancer and what we've been through because he's been through a lot, and uh, it's encouraging. But anytime I always told him, anytime you need me or if you want to do any charities, let's do it. And so that was fun. But he was a great guy, just like Lex Luger. The first time we met wasn't so nice. Not like I said, I'm not saying he'll even tell you he was arrogant and he was just. It's almost like who am I? Oh, come here, kid. Hey, we're gonna blah 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 blah. Yeah, telling you, not really giving you much input. Now you see Lex totally different, and so it's kind of cool to be able to see that side of them as well because we're all human and we all get land. There's been times too. Everybody's been through it. Get a little too big for your britches, so what? But as these guys get older, a lot of them actually realize, my time's running out. How do I want to leave this? How do I want to leave this? Do I want to be a stickler or do I want to go out? People thinking, oh, that's a great dude, man. So I think Lex is trying to make up for lost time because he's been he's so kind to the folks and he's really encouraged to, and Hacksaw as well. And most of them are very kind and they'll do whatever they have to do to make the fans happy. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah. So, did you prefer being single wrestler or did you prefer tag team?
As Max, I preferred single. As German Stormtrooper and as a Russian, I'd rather be tag. Of course, 90% of my wrestling Russian was a singles. But the Germans was good. I love Chuck Smith. He was my buddy, and we did the German Stormtroopers together for about a year. And I love that. It was easy heat, and we got out there and we fed off each other. But overall, I'd say I probably enjoyed tag. The older I got, the more I enjoyed the tag teaming. Early in my career, I enjoyed the singles. Now it's kind of self-explanatory because you can tag. If you got to tag out, you tag out. In a singles match, you can only. I'll tell you another funny story. Things are coming to me as I talk. In 1999, I had a dark match with Kurt Angle. Kurt was getting ready for television, and they put me in them with him, and they gave us 7 minutes. And they said, go out there, get heat, do the thing, dark match, so it don't matter. We're just trying to see how he handles television. We get out there and wrestle. We're doing all this, and he's got me. He's talking about Olympic gold medalist coming right out of the Olympics, and like he's trying to learn how to work. And as a pro wrestler, and we got in there, and I was about to die. And I said, take a powder, I'm blowed up. He said, kid, I don't get blowed up. I'm like, oh God, please just keep his head locked for 5 minutes. But we got out there and we went 12 minutes and they didn't tell us any different. And we got to the back and Jim Ross said, you guys did good. You did good. You covered. Kurt, that was a long 7 minutes. Jim Ross said, it ain't what? I told him before the match, referee, I said, give him 12. I want to see how he handles it in case it's live television. Yeah, you're supposed to be on TV soon, and I want to see if you can cover if we have a situation where we got to cover 5 minutes. So he only one that knew it was 12 was the referee. We had no idea, but it felt like we were out there for an hour, especially with him. But I remember that I was just like, oh, God. And then at least I don't get blowed up. I'm thinking, oh, Lord, this is going to be fun. We got through it. Thank God.
By chance, were you with I think it was WCW when Paul Orton and what is his name? They got into a fight. My mom went blank on his name. Big Van Vader. Were you there when Paul Orton and Vader got into a fight?
I was at the WCW. I wasn't around it when it happened. I'd heard about it. I was also there. Stab Sid with scissors. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't see it, but I heard. You hear the news the next week. You're like, did you hear what happened? Orange stabbed Sid. Don't know how it happened, but I think Sid pushed him the wrong way, and Orange said, "Okay, big boy." And some of the other things, Vader was some other stories. He was. They almost said, look, man, you can't keep hurting. He was putting guys in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
We were coming in, and I heard Jody tell him face to face. He said, Vader, you're killing my job, guys. He said, who are we going to have to wrestle? Who's going to make you look good? I don't have anybody. He was yelling at him. You got to stop hurting these guys. And Vader's like, oh, well, I'm just kind of making excuses. But I thought Jody was going to shoot on him. And but he was hurting guys every week. And I kept thinking, God, please no Van Vader, because he was dry. The power bomb you can bump yourself. You don't have to have any help. And I just never understood why he had to give that, And then Sid was doing it too, but they had a heart to heart with them boys. They said, "Boys, you got to calm down. You're hurting our talent." And so, another little behind the scenes thing there that happened back then. But you ever seen Kevin Nash do a power bomb? That's how you do it. Just let the guy fall. Let the guy fall. Unless you got to beef with him. Those guys, I watched that match about back in the 90s where those two guys they wouldn't sell nothing for the skyscrapers. That he deserved a butt whooping. He kept bumping, getting up, feed. I'm like, what is this guy doing? That was Danny Spivey's finish.
Right.
He jumped back up. Now he deserved a butt whooping, but if you don't deserve it, dude, just like be easy on us. I mean, we're trying to make you look great, and sometimes those guys that know their own strength. I know that. The only injury I ever had in the match was where I was hurt with Sean O'Hare. He gave me one of those kicks to the back, and I thought I was going to have to. Shane Helms is a good friend of mine. I said, man, he kicked me so hard, my lungs beat me to the hospital. And it made him laugh, but I thought that was one of the worst. That was hard. And I thought, why is he doing this? I'm out here making him look good. But some people, I don't know if it's because they couldn't work or they just didn't care. But 95% of the time, I got through unscathed, and it was great. Everything was wonderful. I mean, if you could work Steiners, I worked them 3 different times, and you come out with no injuries. I mean, I'm easy to work with. It's like, just work together. We don't need to go out here and kill people. But
right, and you brought up Ole Anderson. I know that he was a booker for a while for WCW. Did you ever have any issues with him?
No, he was he was doing the Black Scorpion voice, and I had Sting that night, and that was weird. That was in Gainesville, Georgia. You're in there at the match, and he's doing this stuff, and Sting, blah blah blah. Then Sting gives me a clothesline, and I bumped. Well, he's like, "Show your face," and he's looking around for the Scorpion. I mean, I sold it for like 45 seconds. I sold it for like a minute, and I made my way back up because I mean, in real life, a clothesline, you bump. You go to the next spot, but there was no next spot. He was trying to register for the Black Scorpion's voice, so I made my way back up. I sold it, and I crawled over. He reared back and gave me a punch. He said, "Stay down," and he hit me. So I bumped again. I stayed down, but afterwards, I thought he'd be mad at me. I said, "Sting, I was just trying to make it look real." I said, "If I lay there for a clothesline for 3 minutes, people are gonna be like, 'Good Lord, what did he have in his elbow? Steel pipe?'" Right. But I was just trying to make it look real, and he said, that's fine. He said, I know. He said it was hard to adjust because that voice. He had just started doing that. You're trying to work a match, then you got to register for the Scorpion because this is all about the Scorpions coming to get you. And then we're trying to work a match. So both of us were kind of like, it was weird. So he gave me that punch. I bumped. I just waited for him to come get me. I thought he said stay down, so I'm going to sell it. If I have to sell it for 20 minutes, I will. Last thing I want to do is make anybody mad at me. So we did the finish. And that was it. But
yeah. So just a couple more questions. I have to ask: do you have any Bob Cook stories by chance?
Me and Bob tagged one night, and I think it was Columbus, Georgia. I guess not Haku. Tommy Rich and the Junkyard Dog. Once again, it's on YouTube somewhere. And we joked today. They beat me. Tommy beat me with a fast press, and we worked them and stuff in JYD, and it was good. But to this day, we'll joke about we had them beaten and they cheated, and people actually buy it. Like, really? Bob said, "Yeah, man. He pulled his tights when Tommy Rich pulled his tights when he pinned him. You didn't see it." And people actually go look it up to see. Bob's such a ribber. But today, I got to see Bob 2 years ago in Jacksonville. He came to one of these Comic Cons. First time I'd seen him in years. And I love him. I met him for the first time in 1988 at an independent show down there. And our paths went different directions because he was in Florida and I was in North Carolina. But the times in WCW, our friendship got stronger and stronger. And then later on, and now we look back and it's like, just really, Bob has been, you probably already know this, but he is so much respected. I've never heard a bad word about him. Everybody loves him. He's got a great, great work ethic. He's got a great punch. As everybody knows, one of the best punches I've ever seen. Him and Pat Rose and Rip Rogers and me and some of the other guys, we just clicked. Some people just click, and our little group clicked. and always look forward to seeing him. I don't really have any behind the scenes stories because Bob minded his business and he did what he was told. It didn't matter. Go out there and do a job to PN News, he'd do it. You go out there and do a job to Ric Flair, he'd do it. He just loved to wrestle. He loves. I love it when people say, "Did you job for blah blah?" He says, "Well, I like to think of myself as a pro wrestler, not a jobber." But I love how he does that. It's like, you know, like he said one time. He said, "If I go in your job and you wash dishes, I'm not going to say, hey, are you a dishwasher or do you work for, say, Olive Garden?" It's just the way you say it. I work at the Olive Garden. Versus you're a dishwasher. That's it's kind of like, and I know that's the word jobber. It doesn't matter to me, but he would always correct them and say, I'd like to think of it as pro wrestler, but anyway, and big evil Knievel guy and huge evil Knievel guy, and but I love him so much, and and the one thing about me and Bob, he has his own way of believing as far as this life we live.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see spiritually, we don't see eye to eye, but we never let it get in front of we never let it get in the way of our friendship. He said some things before and I don't agree, or maybe he don't agree with me, and that's fine. But you know what? We just don't talk about it. We stayed, and that's why I wish people could realize in this country, if you have a difference of opinion, that's fine. You ain't got to lose your friendship. You ain't got to unfriend and block people because they voted for so and so and he voted. Just be. It's America. It's your right to feel the way you want to feel. And I wish people would see that and we'd all get along a lot better. But right now it's like, oh, you like so-and-so? Well, I hate your guts. We can't be that way. But one thing about Bob, he's cool across the board. He's cool. And I can't wait to see him again.
Yeah, I tell you, and you brought up politics. I was heavily into politics before I decided I was just gonna start focusing on my professional wrestling. I ran for office, all that stuff. Um, I just had to get out of politics, and you brought it up. And here's a question for you, since you did bring it up with politics. Um, I see a lot of professional wrestlers on their Facebook page, under their gimmick Facebook page, talking about politics. Do you think that politics, when it comes to celebrities, people who have influence, um, should they kind of keep it within their own personal lives, even their personal pages, instead of where all the fans going? Because I personally think that sometimes a lot of people vote for who they vote for the wrong reasons. They do it because so and so's doing it. I'm like you. I got completely away from politics because I got tired of people telling me I shouldn't be associated with somebody, because I don't care who you vote for. If you're someone that I'm friends with, someone I love, you're going to be someone that I'm friends with and someone that I love. But when it comes to that status, do you think that they should kind of keep it on their own personal Facebook page or social media pages, and not their gimmick pages where they're influencing people?
Yeah, honestly, and I will be honest with you. I there's people that I really, um, maybe I'm being a hypocrite, but there's times when I'm like, somebody's so hell bent on bashing one of the others. I'm like, I'm done, man. I don't want to see it, and I'll just mute it, whatever. I used to watch this guy sing or that girl sing, and I just let's just do what you do. You're a singer, you're a wrestler, you're a whatever you are, entertainer of whatever. Just do your thing, man. I'll be the biggest fan. Let's just keep this, out of. I try my best, honestly. I know I've been guilty before right during election time. I might have shared something, but I've never come out and just flat out become annoying. Like, God, that Chuck guy, here we go again with so and so. I wish that people could control it. Because um, I just think if you're a great singer, I'm just going to take, for instance, say Bon Jovi. Man, I bought all of his stuff, watched him, and Bruce Springsteen. Do your thing, man. Sing your butt off. Go back. I don't care if you're 105 and you're still singing. Go for it. Please just keep it at that. And that goes for anybody, Republican or Democrat. I would
Yep.
say, Ted Nugent, for instance. I love Ted Nugent, but whatever he votes or whatever he feels like, I'm not going to, I'm trying to look at him as Ted Nugent. I'm not looking at him as
Mhm.
a Trumpster, or I'm not looking at Billy Springsteen as a left wing whatever.
Right.
I really wish, and that go, like you said, it went into the wrestling world. I really wish that, like, I know Mick's a big time Democrat, and I know that Hulk's a big time Republican. And really, there's tension there because of that. And I really hate that because those guys have been through so much. And the reason I know there's tension because I've heard people talk about it. I was at that show a while back, and the tension between Mick and Luke, and this is just the boys talking. I'm not talking about just wrestle. I'm talking about the big boys like the Lugers and the Ron Simmons and the guys I hang out with at these things. It's like it's coming between their friendship, and that's so sad. Do your thing, whatever, but just keep it on the down low. I mean, that's my opinion. Now, if I was in the shoes of Hulk, or if I was in the shoes of Mick, and I had the money they had, I might would be contradicting myself. But the way I see it, I don't want somebody not like me because who I voted for. I would like to be let's go back to the cancer issue. I would like for somebody to contact me to try to encourage them because they're going through a bout. I don't want him to say, well, I'm not talking to him because he's a whatever. He voted. That ain't the way I want it. I want to be that person because I don't give a flying. Cancer doesn't discriminate. I don't give a crap. You're Muslim, Christian, if you're Democrat, Republican, whatever you are, Satanist, cancer doesn't discriminate. And I want to be that, I don't want that to keep somebody from saying, well, I'm not talking to him because of blah. And I wouldn't want to be that way if I wanted to reach out to somebody about something and say, well, I'm wasting my time because they're going to probably, go back to politics. It all comes back to that. Right. It's like that. And I mean, you've been involved with it in the past. You kind of know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I really wish it would go back to my dad's days. There's two things you talk about: how much money you made and politics. That was personal. I really wish it went there. Going back to wrestling, because I very rarely bring up politics in this format, because again, I want this to be a positive format. Last two questions. Who was the person you most liked facing in the ring and why? And who was the person you least liked facing in the ring and why? And I'm not talking about, because I just didn't like this person. Something like, just your styles that, didn't match or whatnot.
I got two quick answers for you. I've answered this question before. My favorite all-time match was against Ricky Steamboat. We had when I say 8 minutes, you probably are familiar now. Back in my time, 8 minutes meant the minute you walk through that curtain, the timer's ticking. We had 8 minutes. Jordan Arena, which is my home, where I used to go watch wrestling as a kid in Raleigh, North Carolina. I got to wrestle in my dream building against one of the greatest, and we had a wonderful match. That was for NAWA back when Paul Jones was running it. Mm-hmm. And back then we sent in videotapes, VHS tapes. I sent him a tape. He called back way before cell phones. He called my home phone, my voicemail. Paul Jones, call me back. Really? So I called him back. He says, you think you can have a match with Steamboat? I know you're up in Raleigh. We need somebody to work with Steamboat. I said, absolutely. I'd love to have the opportunity. He said, you think you could do it? He said, Jordan Arena, there's nowhere to get before the match. You got to get out there and call in the ring. I said, I'm all ears, Paul, Mr. Jones, whatever I said. He said, okay, I'm going to put you on with Steamboat. Man, that was like, what? We went out there and had a great match, and that was my number one all-time favorite. The least liked for me, a night it was a tag match. Hugh Morris and Prince Albert. I liked Hugh. He was okay, but Prince Albert, I don't know if he didn't like me. I don't know what. I tagged with a guy named Pat Cusick, one of my independent guys, friends, and every time me and Albert got in, and we had, I don't know how long we had. It was a decent little match. He worked me like I had heat with it. I was like, what in the world? And I just didn't have a good experience with him. And I guess he ended up cracking one of my teeth. When you have a leg, you twist the leg. If I can do it, drop me on talking about. If I've got he bumps. He says, get my leg. You stand on one leg, then you get the other leg, and like a toe hold type. You working? And I kept working. He said, work it. And then I reached down because he was going to give me a shove. And push off, boom, take a bump. He came back right there, back here. Right there. Kicked me like I cheated on his wife or something. But I'll never forget that. And I thought afterwards we didn't we didn't really say much. I don't know what it was, but it was a bad experience and cracked my tooth. I never even told the office about it. Regular job during the week, and I just used my insurance and got it fixed because once again, I didn't want to cause any problems. If I go about he cracked my tooth and they might get back to the office, oh Jim Ross, he's gonna be a liability if we hire him. I didn't want no reason to, not get hired. So I kept to myself. I think I got a crown there now. Now it's kind of like the memory I'm talking about it, that this was in 2002, I think. But yeah, he just kicked me like just like I don't know, it happened so fast. I'm like, well, that knocked me out. And I don't know why he didn't like me, but I felt like he didn't because everything we did was real stiff. And I just had a bad experience. So that would be my number one. And I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of matches, but this night was different. And like I said, I don't know why. I guess I'll never know why. But
well, I tell you what, Chuck, man, I loved having you on the show. You're a great guy. And look, I still have a lot of questions I haven't even covered, but we had the hour 16-minute mark, and the experts say don't go over an hour. So you're welcome to come back anytime you want to. I would love to have you back. Is there anything that you want to plug, to put out there? Anything you're doing?
Yeah, just real quick. Right now, I was on disability with the cancer, and 3 times with cancer. You could probably go on disability forever. I'm once again, I'm a proud man. I'm a proud husband. Got foster kids. I'm too proud to sit home and draw a check. Okay. Now I'm not saying some people it's necessary. I get it. I just knew that I was able. So I started working for a nonprofit here in Durham, North Carolina. It's the Durham Rescue Mission. I've been there almost 3 years, and we're a homeless shelter. And so I'm able to give back to the kind of like in a different way and help these guys. We've got right now about 625 people. It's a real big shelter. It's not like you think downtown where you got an overhang and there's people sleeping on top of you. We actually have like almost a small college campus type setting, but we've got 400, right at 400 men and about 125 women. So we do that, and if you're ever in the area in Durham, or look us up online, and if you ever want to be a part of it, let me know. I mean, we're a nonprofit, so whether it's well wishes or whether it's money or whether it's gift in kind donations, we take whatever because we have thrift stores and we resell it, and it goes right back into the operations of we have, and I like Goodwill where it gives in somebody's pocket. Our thrift stores turn right over and go right back into keeping the air on, keeping the bellies filled, keeping the lights on, whatever. And so, but it's a Durham Rescue Mission, and like I said, you can look us up online, and I'm a part of that. If I can plug anything, it will be that, because these are people who actually, I'm not talking about panhandlers that are out there just trying to get drug money. I mean, some people, the bad thing about panhandlers, the ones that really need it, you don't know anymore, because if this guy's really, is your sign? Because I've stopped, I don't mean to go off the rabbit trail. I've stopped 15, 20 times just in my area. And I said, I can get you a meal right now. I can get you a place to stay, a roof over your head. All I got to do is make a phone call. Oh, I'm not going there. They kicked me out. I said, well, your sign says hungry, homeless, veteran, anything else. I'm trying to help you. I'm not giving you a dime, but I will get you some food. And no, they kicked me out. I said, we didn't kick you out. We have rules, and you kicked yourself out. So don't ever let those people on the street. I'm not saying everybody's not homeless. Be careful where your money goes, because a lot of those guys and girls are out there, and you don't know, you might be supplying their habit. I'm just being real. I'm just being real selective. Not saying don't do it. If you feel led to do it, do it. But be careful. If they want something, give them something to eat. Don't give them $20. I know it's inconvenient, but that's what you got to do, because you be careful, because they'll work you in a heartbeat. And with that being said, Durham Rescue Mission, look us up, man, and pray for us. We need prayers, because every day is somebody else coming through those doors that needs help. So,
well, again, thank you, Chuck, so very much, guys. Don't forget, tomorrow night, myself, the wrestling enthusiast Mark, the best damn referee in the business, George Strait, and of course, the Hall of Famer, the cooker, Bob Cook, will be with us as always on Tuesday nights. Please subscribe so you always catch my show. I have so many great interviews coming very, very soon. So again, Chuck, thank you so much. And everybody, Have a great week and tune in tomorrow night.
I love that guy so much.
I will do that, my man. Good night, brother. Thank you.